Well, for movie reviews today, I'm once again joined by Andy Godfrey, movie reviewer and film critic for Sorted Digital and also Pure 247 Radio. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Nathan, and what a privilege to be on with you, and what a privilege to be the station's film reviewer.
Yes, we
I
are we
do,
are
I
privileged to have
do
you on.
excited. I do look forward to these chats each week because this is, apart from my faith, this is the thing and my family. This is the thing I'm most passionate about, my movies. So I love chatting to you.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting when you have a passion about something, because even if
Yeah.
somebody else isn't interested in a particular topic, when somebody who's really passionate about it starts talking about it, that's when it becomes interesting to everyone because they have a passion and that comes across more than the actual subject itself.
So, especially with one film this week, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Awesome, yeah. Well, the last thing we mentioned last week was, in fact, the results of the Oscars. Should we start with that?
Let's start with the Oscars. Now, I did my usual. I went to bed on Sunday night at a decent time, and I just sent all my other film critic friends a message saying, "Wake me up in the morning when it's over." I'm not a big fan of the Oscars. I think they rarely get it right. We're talking about a group of people who never gave Alfred Hitchcock a Best Director Oscar. We're talking about a group of people who said that Driving Miss Daisy was the best film of one particular year, when Driving Miss Daisy is a terribly boring film. So I never get it right. But we did make some predictions last week, or I did, and I got a couple right. I
Oh,
was
great.
just before we came on air, and I literally got a couple right. Not all, only two out of what 30 odd awards that are given out on the night. But I'll live with that. Bearing in mind, I don't like the Oscars. What I didn't foresee was the film that swept the board, really, with Best Actor, Best Director, Best Picture, and it also won another award as well, which I haven't listed. But the film Anora. Now, people would have seen this on the news. So, Anora is a 2.5 hour long film about a sex worker in Los Angeles who falls in love with the son of a Russian mafia Don. And the Russian mafia, the father, is not very happy that his son is in love with this girl because he thinks she's common. He thinks she's not good enough for him. He wants her to marry a Russian girl. So the first half of the film, we see these two young people falling really madly in love, and they get married towards the end of the first hour. The second hour, now I found that first hour tedious. It was too long just to show us that two people had really fallen in love with each other. Yes, I get it. They are in love. Move on. But nevertheless, they take an hour, and lots of my friends and people I know who are film critics have all said, yeah, it was wonderful and it was great. And clearly the American actors thought it was great because they gave it the best film award. But I found that first hour tedious. What's much more interesting is the second hour, when the father flies from Russia to America, having learned that his son has married this woman that he disapproves of, and he goes to try and kidnap his own son and to force him to divorce this woman, and the son goes on the run. So the second half of the film, we've got the girlfriend Honora being looked after by Russian mafia agents so that she doesn't run away, being told she's got to divorce the guy she loves. We've got the son on the run, and they're traveling all over Los Angeles trying to find him. Now, that second hour is actually really, really entertaining. It's good fun. They go to all the places they think he could be. They don't find him. They don't find him. There's some really funny moments between the girl and the Russian mafia guys that are, holding a hostage, basically. It's good. The basic tenet of the film will not everybody, obviously particularly on this channel, on this station, will not be happy with. Obviously, it's a film about the sex worker. Okay. The second half of the film, I was really surprised looking at the list of films. I mean, as we said last week, there were 10 up for Best Picture. And when I looked at it, I thought, hang on. No, I can't believe that this is one out of those 10. We had some really great films. I mean, Wicked only won 2 Oscars in the end, and they were both technical awards for costume and production design. So that was a surprise. And the Best Director Award went to it as well. Adrian Brody got Best Actor Award for The Brutalist, which is this film about a 3.5 hour long film about an American refugee at the end of a Hungarian refugee at the end of the Second World War arriving in America and trying to eke out a living as an architect, because that's what he did before the war back in Hungary, before the Holocaust. So he survived the Holocaust. It's a strong film. It's a powerful film. I wasn't surprised that he won Best Actor, because he's been winning Best Actor all over the place. The big disappointment of the night, the real big disappointment of the night, was that Conclave, the British film, didn't do better. I was really hoping that it would, but it swept the board at other awards, the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the Directors Award, the BAFTAs. Conclave had done really well, but unfortunately at the Oscars, Conclave did not do well. One I do want to mention that did do well, that won Best Documentary, and this will really be of interest to some of our listeners, is a film called No Other Land. And this was voted as best documentary, and it's a moving, compelling, really intricate documentary about the Palestinian/Israeli situation in the Middle East, and who actually owns the land, and why do the Israelis say, well, we've got to have the land from here to there, and the Palestinians say, well, we've got to live somewhere, we want part of the land. Why are they at war? What is the land that they're actually fighting over? And of course, as Christians, we know in the Bible, God had laid out the boundaries of the promised land. And as Jews believe that as well, because the Old Testament is their scripture. So you've got God saying, I will give you the land from, the river Euphrates down to the river Jordan and across to the sea and all the rest of it. And this documentary really does explore in a really compelling way this issue of what land belongs to who, really. The thing is, it is now available on Film 4, and it's going to be shown on Film 4. So even people who don't have Sky, have just got Freeview, will be able to see it this week. It's going to be shown on Film 4. And it really is worth watching, genuinely. But that one, Best Documentary. So, the other one I was pleased about was the Best International Film, which was a film we reviewed last week called I'm Still Here, which is this political thriller set in Brazil. That one, Best International. So this year for me, the Oscars were a pretty mixed bag. I mean, there was a pretty mixed bag of films, everything from horror with The Substance all the way through to musicals, with Wicked, and every point in between, really. The only thing we didn't have really was a cowboy film, and if that had been thrown in the mix, I wouldn't have been surprised. But, there you go. The people who vote for these things, 30,000 people who vote in the American Academy, actors, directors, technical people, they all get a vote. And they decided that Anora was the best film of the year. They decided it was the best directed film of the year, the best acted film of the year. They decided I'm Still Here was the best international picture. And a film which I haven't seen called Flow beat Wallace and Gromit to the best animated feature. So that was a shame, really. But there we go. So that was the Oscars. As I say, they've come and gone. We now wait another 12 months for all the hype to start up again.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the contenders are this time next year if the Lord Jesus hasn't come back. And sometimes I'm sitting watching a film, I think, please, Lord, come back right now and put me out of my misery. Because, it's terrible. So there we go. Yeah, the Oscars, the show itself, really interesting James Bond tribute, because Bond has now been bought by Amazon. The producers of Bond, it was all over the news last week, the Broccolis, who've always produced the Bond films, have sold all the rights to Amazon. And there's all sorts of speculation about what's going to happen with the future of James Bond. Now that Amazon have got their claws on it, might be a TV series, might be more films, who knows? Okay. But they did a tribute to, it seemed a bit pointless, really, to a musical tribute to Bond. And there you go. There was also a musical tribute to Wicked as part of the show. So I missed all that. I didn't care. The film I wanted to win didn't, but there you go. That's the Oscars.
Excellent. Well, so you say that you got a couple of them right, did you?
I got Best Actor and Best International Picture.
Well, that's not bad.
Two out of about 30 odd. It's terrible. But then you can, as I said, you can never tell. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, that famous case where La La Land was introduced, was announced as the winner of the Best Picture, which it was by a country mile. And a film that I really don't like called Moonlight, which I think is dour and boring, and it's about a black kid going up in the grottos, and it's a very depressing film, won Best Picture. So you can never trust, you can never predict genuinely the Oscars. I mean, a friend of mine got 12 out of 30. So he did much better than me, but that was only because I was voting on films that I like, you know?
Yeah.
So there we go. But thank you for letting me share with you about the Oscars. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's fine. So some interesting films. I didn't realize that there were so many people who voted for it. I mean, you're saying 30,000.
Yes, it's something like that, because you've got every actor, every director, all the technicians. If you've ever seen the credits at the end of, say, an animated film or a CGI film, you know, they can go on for 10 minutes, all the credits.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. I may be slightly exaggerating 30,000. It may not be quite that many, but it's a lot of people. And it tends to be that the technicians will vote for the technical awards. The people who design the costumes will vote for the costumes. Wicked got best costumes, which I thought it would do. You know, actors vote for the acting awards and so on. So that's what it tends to be. But it's the whole, everybody who's in Hollywood who is signed up to the Actors Union and works in Hollywood basically gets a vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
That's grown over the years, because when they first started in 1929, the first Oscar ceremony, you wouldn't have had, you know, best animated feature. You wouldn't have had best whatever. So, yeah.
Interesting, yeah. So that was what happened at the Oscars.
Yeah.
A few surprises, I suppose. Is there some sort of...
I didn't expect Anora to do as well as it did. I heard on the Oscars were on the Sunday. On the Saturday, I heard a piece on Radio 5 Live that said bookies in America had made Anora the favourite. Bookies here were still saying Conclave was the favourite. So a lot of people, I think, over the weekend, I know some people who won some money by placing bets, switched from Conclave to Anora, because that's what the Americans were going. And the Americans do like to vote for American films. You know, they like us Brits, they really do. And I thought that's why Conclave might stand a chance, bearing in mind the, you know, Chariots of Fire and all the rest of it, British films that have won in the past. But it didn't. So we live with it, and it doesn't matter. But do look out, if you haven't seen any of the Oscar-nominated films, as we said last week, they will be shown in cinemas over the next few weeks. And Anora will be back in cinema. Believe me, I'm not going to go and see it again. Once was enough for me. If Conclave comes back, I might well go and see that. But some of these films will be shown in cinemas. And this documentary, which I really want to recommend people watch, called No Other Land, it's available to buy on Sky or rent on Sky, but it's available for free if you've got. It will be shown on Film 4, so check the listings. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that little summary of the Oscars this year. We look forward to finding out what happens next year, what's in the runnings, and again, what predictions you have and what matches up at the end. So yeah, thank you so much. There is a new film out in UK and Irish cinemas today. In fact, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is one that we've been talking about for some time, because I first saw it last September and it's only being released in cinemas today. So this is Bonhoeffer, the life and times of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. For those unfamiliar with the name, he's a German who, just before the outbreak of World War II, went to America and met some Pentecostal Christians and was converted to Christianity. He then went back to Germany as World War II was starting and started writing theological books. Absolutely wonderful theological books, helping people to understand the Bible. But then with Hitler's rise to power, Hitler became a real opponent of evangelical Christianity. He was not just opposing the Jews, he was making life difficult for evangelical Christians and gypsies and everybody else. But Bonhoeffer stood up and said to his colleagues in the ministry in Germany, there was a conference of ministers and, you know, a conclave, I nearly said, of ministers. And Bonhoeffer was one of these guys who said, we have got to oppose what Hitler is doing. We've got to stand up. We've got to be brave. This is persecution and we've got to keep going. And one of the things Hitler was doing was he was withdrawing Bibles from German churches and having them reprinted with an 11th commandment after the 10. And the 11th commandment was, thou shalt obey the Führer. And Bonhoeffer and others really stood up to this. In fact, at one point, Bonhoeffer himself was implicated in the plot to kill Hitler. You know, the tagline for the film, when you see the poster, is "Pastor, Spy, Assassin." And he was implicated in the plot to kill Hitler, which, as we know, failed, and Hitler ended up killing himself. But Bonhoeffer, for standing up to Hitler, for standing up for what is right, for his Christian evangelical faith, ended up being put in a concentration camp. So we always think of the Jewish people rightly being put in concentration camps, but others were as well. I mean, they weren't just Jews; they were gypsies, there were poor people, there were theologians, and in fact, Hitler was so strong in his opposition to Hitler, and not only was he put in a concentration camp, but Hitler ordered him to be executed, and to be executed by being hung naked, which, of course, is the ultimate humiliation, death, you know. And Bonhoeffer was an incredible guy, and the film is unbelievably powerful. It really is. Now, it's showing twice a week at my local Cineworld, starting today, twice a day at my local Cineworld this coming week. I really want people to check it out. I really want people to go and see it. And there are 3 reasons why you should go and see Bonhoeffer. Firstly, because it's a fantastic film, and you will learn and be challenged by the life of a man of faith. Secondly, because it is a film that teaches us lessons about history. And if we make this film a success, folks, we will get money for more Christian films to be made. And thirdly, the more people that go and see it at Cineworld or at the Odeon, the more likely Cineworld and Odeon are to show Christian films in the future. You know, I mean, because Cineworld and Odeon and other cinema chains are often very reluctant to show Christian films because they don't think they're going to make money. They don't think the box office is going to be really good. And I'm just saying to people, go see it, you know. I'm planning to go and see it, even though I've seen it. Again, this is a film I want to see again. I saw it on my laptop. I want to see it on the big screen. There's a group of ladies from my church going as a party. You know, if there's any pastors or ministers listening, or anybody who leads youth groups, or anybody who leads any group within your church, it's a 12A certificate. So, you know, that's good. That's good. It's 12A. So anybody can see it. Under 12s can see it as long as they've got adult, you know, supervision. It is a powerful film. It's a haunting film. It's a harrowing film, but it is a 12A. And please, people, go and see this. Now, I got to interview the director, whose name I can never pronounce, Todd Komorowski, I think it was. Anyway, Todd, my interview with Todd is on Pure's YouTube channel, and we posted, you guys posted it again this week. Todd, who wrote the film, is a born-again writer, director, lovely Christian guy. I interviewed him. I was sat in Milton Keynes here. He was in Hollywood, and we had the most fantastic chat. And if you watch that interview or listen to it back, you will discover his passion for Jesus Christ. I mean, the man is so outspoken. And isn't it great that right in the heart of Hollywood, we've got a guy making quality films? I mean, he produced the Christmas classic Elf, and he wrote the film Sully about the plane that landed in the Potomac River going in Washington, and the pilot saved everybody's life. He wrote that film. He produced Elf. Isn't it fantastic that we've got a Christian right there in the center of Hollywood producing great films? So go see Bonhoeffer, please. It is a 12A certificate. Take people from your church. Honestly, it is really, it will blow you away, seriously, and it will challenge you. Bonhoeffer's first book, most successful book, was a book called The Cost of Discipleship. Well, he knew what he was talking about because he paid with his life for the cost. That was the cost he paid for his discipleship of Jesus Christ, for following Jesus. Really challenging film, Nathan, honestly. Please, anybody listening, search it out, go see it. Let's make it a success for those reasons that A, we might get more Christian films, and B, Cineworld and Odeon will be more inclined to show them, because that's what we want. You know, we want good, powerful, positive films in cinema. So, yeah. And the video's on the YouTube channel, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed. Your conversation with Todd, is it Kamarniki? That sounds about right to me.
Kamarniki, that's right. Yeah, I could never pronounce his name.
Yeah, so he's the director of this film, Bonhoeffer, which is, of course, out now in UK and Irish cinemas. And yeah, I'm looking forward, hopefully, to seeing it at some point. It does sound fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
I've read and watched about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Actually, I remember sort of studying him a little bit a few years ago, but he's a really interesting character. And again, he's one of those many people who stood up against the tyranny of the Nazi regime during World War II, and in his case, paid the ultimate price, standing up for what was right.
Yeah. And the film graphically, the film doesn't pull any punches, but he has managed to. He wanted a 12A certificate because he wanted younger people to see it, so that they get the message as well. The importance of the cost of discipleship.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other films out in the cinema. I know we're running close on time. I'll just mention what they are rather than, because I haven't really seen. There's a new documentary about Twiggy, which some of our older listeners might want to go and see. Twiggy was the fashion model of the 60s. She was on the cover of Vogue and Cosmopolitan and all those magazines. She was a fashion icon in the 60s. There's a new documentary out about her. And I'm looking forward to this one. There's a new science fiction film coming out called Mickey 17. And this is set in the future where human beings have learned how to revive dead people. And so what you can do if you're unemployed, you can sign up to a special program where you get to do the dangerous jobs where you're likely to be killed, but they can revive you. And then you do another dangerous job where whoever's doing it is likely to be killed. And then and we're going to talk next week about a film called Last Breath, which is about divers repairing pipelines under the sea. This film is about somebody doing really dangerous jobs, getting killed, coming back to life, doing another dangerous job. And I haven't seen it, but it looks good. Shall we just mention a couple to watch at home?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, couple to watch at home. And this one's been out now for a couple of weeks to watch at home. But boy, people see it. It's called Thelma. Now, we reviewed this on the show when it was in cinemas. This was my second favourite film of last year, behind Wicked. So, Thelma is a 93-year-old grandmother who is conned by some really bad guys. They con her out of all of her savings. And they do this by phoning her up and saying, we have kidnapped your grandson. We want you to leave money in a certain place and we will give your grandson back if you do that. So what happens is she goes to the bank, she gets all her money out, she drops it off where she's been told to drop the money off, walks away. An hour later, her grandson walks into the room where she is in a nursing home and she says, oh, I'm so pleased you've been released. He said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you were kidnapped and I paid the money in your release. It's fantastic to see you. He said, I wasn't kidnapped. So she's been conned. And she decides to go after the bad guys. So I always say to people, think James Bond when he's 93. Okay, because this film has explosions. It has a car chase involving mobility scooters. And it is just the most joyous, hilarious, wonderful, lovely. It's got a lot to say about old age. It's got something to say about dementia. It's got a lot to say about the way we treat the elderly. But I saw this film on my birthday last year in the Watershed Cinema in Bristol, which is one of my favourite cinemas. Basically, it's an old warehouse by the docks that they've converted into a cinema. It's a fantastic cinema. And there's one of the screens is quite small where I saw this, and it was packed out. And as an audience, we were laughing and joking and joining in. And I normally want total silence when I'm watching a film. I don't want any distractions. I want phones off and all the rest of it. But I didn't mind because everybody was having so much fun. And there's one scene where we're in an old people's nursing home and the senior folk are putting on a play and somebody says, break a leg. And the guy in the audience behind me shouted out, don't say that because she probably will. Watching all these doddery old people producing Hamlet or something like that. Honestly, it is just a joy. Please, Thelma, it's available to stream. It is available to watch. And I would say, go see Thelma. So, as I say, in cinemas this week, we've got Bonhoeffer, which is a must-see. We've got Mickey 17, which is science fiction thriller. We've got Twiggy, which is a documentary about Twiggy, obviously. So yeah, and then we've got Thelma to watch at home. And also the documentary No Other Land to watch at home as well. So fabulous week this week. Nothing really bad this week. And next week, we've got a really good film to talk about that I saw last night, but it's not coming out till next week, called Last Breath. So if people want to start checking that out, please do. I'll just give you one to avoid.
Yeah,
One to
sure.
avoid. So do you remember last week, my one to avoid was a film called 80 for Brady. It was a film, good cast, Jane Fonda, Diana Rigg, not Diana Rigg, others anyway, Jane Fonda's in it, about a group of senior women going on a road trip and having misadventures. Okay. On Netflix this week, you will see The Book Club Chapter 2. It is about a group of senior women going on a road trip and having misadventures. The only difference is this one's set in Italy, whereas the other one is set in America. Exactly the same story, exactly the same things happen. There were 4 films last year that came out about groups of women on road trips. They all had the same plot. They all had the same incidents. They all lose their money. They all lose their passports. They all lose their bags. They all have one night stands. They all fall in love with the wrong guy. They eventually end up, of course, at their destination. The plot was the same. One of them was about a group of women going to reuniting after many, many years as Take That fans and going to see a Take That concert in Spain. And Take That are in that film for all of 30 seconds. You see a group, you see them on the Paris metro, Spanish metro, singing. They're in there for about 30 seconds. There were 4, and I can't remember the 4th one, probably because I instantly wanted to forget it, because it was instantly forgettable. But honestly, they just said, okay, let's make this film about this group of, we'll do, women going on a road trip. Somebody else thought, we'll do that. Oh, their story was okay. We'll make their story. And it happened 4 times last year. And you might see the book club. Now, the book club part 1, chapter 1, was okay. It was about a group of senior women forming a book club and discussing books and helping each other out with their problems. But this one is dire. I mean, it's absolute rubbish. It's one of those book films that you hope will end up in a charity shop will end up on DVD in a charity shop being sold for 10p, and even I won't buy it to my collection.
Oh dear. So
you
must have got deja vu watching that one.
You do. I mean, I said in one year, last year or the year before, we had 4. Well, so one going to the Super Bowl, one in Italy. The other one, they were going to see a Take That concert in Spain, and I can't honestly, for the life of me, off the top of my head, remember the 4th one. But that's because it was instantly forgettable. I mean, seriously, I would love to see. I don't mind watching films about senior ladies going on a road trip. That could be exciting. That could be interesting. That could be fun, having a laugh, whatever, But when you've got, when I sat through 4 through the year, all with the same plot, basically, all with the same gags, all with the same scenario, all with the same bad situations happening to these women, just send me to sleep.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for that warning. That's one to avoid. We've got Bonhoeffer coming out in cinemas, which is fantastic, and of course a few to watch at home. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been a pleasure as always. Hope you have a great week.
And you, Nathan, I look forward to talking to you about Last Breath next week. It's a great film. God bless.